Greetings, citizens of Nindie Nation. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Nindie Nation podcast, your weekly dose of all things independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. I'm Jeff, and today we're going to be talking about all of the great Nindies coming up for sale on the eShop this week, and as always, in the second half, we'll discuss games that are currently on sale at prices too good for you to miss. This week, we launched a couple of new Let's Plays, including Ding Dong XL and Laser Kitty Pow Pow, and for podcast listeners, check out the Nindie Nation YouTube channel, where you can see a video version of this weekly podcast. I promise it's not my face made for radio, but it's actually footage of the new releases to go alongside the podcast audio. I think you'll like it. We are brought to you by Nintendo Village at thenintendovillage.com, which is an independently run Nintendo website and group of content creators who love discussing the Big N. The content includes feature articles, reviews, discussions, and shows such as the Nintendo Hypecast, Nintendo Nostalgia, and yours truly are all part of the Nintendo Village. You can also check them out at twitch.tv/Nintendo Village for Mario Maker Mondays, where the group is trying to struggle or power their way through all of the fan and community created levels for your viewing pleasure. More on that later. For now, let's jump into the Nindies. We have two recently released gems that came out of nowhere since last week's recording, but who needs marketing? The first one is Mace Tower Defense by Ntwickler-X, who has brought us a bunch of throwaway games in the past, like Bubble Shooter DX, Marble Power Blast, etc. But this one actually looks like a fairly simple but halfway decent tower defense game. The visuals remind me of StarCraft or Command & Conquer games. It's $4, and if you're watching the video, I'm showing you the trailer from the PC or mobile version from a few years ago. But even if the developer can't be bothered to create a trailer for the Switch release, the game doesn't look like it's too bad, and $4, it might be worth checking out. However, a title that might not be worth your hard-earned dollars is Pelican and Medjed. It was shadow dropped by the developer Plicky for $8 this past week. It's some kind of 4 to 8-bit platformer. I really can't tell. Let's go over to the developer's description. 8-bit like exotic action puzzle. Break blocks with guns and solve puzzles. Go to the exciting 8-bit exotic worlds. Try to reach goal, break blocks and take bananas. Try speedrun and get the best rank. Enjoy the action puzzle from 16 stages and more special stage. Can you reach final boss? So there's that for you. Moving on to new releases, starting on August 2nd, we have Swaps and Traps by Dragius Games. We talked about this briefly last week. The game launches for $8.99 and is a traditional 2D get-to-the-other-side-of-the-room platformer with tough-as-nails style and retro art design. The twist here is that the various swaps, as you will, in each room rotate the pieces of the room itself in different quadrants. So you can have like 4 different corners of the room where each one has a different definition of up and down. And I have a code for it, so if it turns out to be something worth your time, you can expect a Let's Play Nindies on the YouTube channel. Also on the 2nd, The Church in the Darkness by Paranoid Productions launches for $15.99, on sale originally for $19.99. It's a 1970s rural America setting where a cult leader who has, I guess, indoctrinated the nephew of the main character, who's a former police officer, who is trying to get into the cult compound. However, whether it's through stealth or combat or a mix of both, to locate and rescue your nephew before it's too late. Also, Burger Chef Tycoon from Baltoro Games for $4.99 is a horrendously mobile game about, you guessed it, making and serving burgers by moving a freakishly large hand across the screen to grab pieces of a burger that are wildly out of proportion and serve them to a series of barely animated still images, and all of their faces look the exact same. Also, Super Willu D-Make, another Ratalaika game. Love Ratalaika games. It launches for $4.99. It's a vibrant 8-bit platformer that harkens back to the glory days of the NES. You're a boy on a quest to save his dog, and you have to progress through over 50 levels and 5 worlds each with their own boss, and you can tackle in one of 3 separate difficulties. Saboteur 2, Avenging Angel, launches from Sim Fabric and Clyde Townsend for $8. And this is a remake, or almost more like a port, of a 1987 game. The game doesn't look too exciting. You play as a saboteur or a spy trying to infiltrate a compound, but remember, this is a really, really old game. What's neat about it is that the game includes multiple variants of it. So you can play versions from the ZX Spectrum, the Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, the MS-DOS version, or there's a special retro, I guess that's your remake version. Looks pretty neat, but the game itself, I don't know, might be a little too old for my tastes. On August 6th, we have one lonely release by one of the brightest dumpster fires on the eShop. That's right, Ultimate Games, who has to date released 22 digital dingleberries, launches Epic Clicker Journey for $5. And guys, I can't tell what the this game is. Check out the trailer. It's playing if you're watching the video right now. It looks like you tap on still images of copyright infringed JPEGs from 80s action and horror movies. Numbers go crazy and you level something up and tap on whatever static image button is on the screen. I can't imagine why we didn't hear about this one before launch. But, knowing Ultimate Games, the festering fecal matter will be 19 cents in a week and probably not even worth the few bucks that it's launching for today. It's sad because this company tries to steal money from the people who say, 19 cents, it can't be that bad, but guys, trust me, it is. However, we've got some exciting titles. On August 7th, The Forbidden Arts by Stingbot Games, a new developer to the eShop, launches for $12.74, regularly $14.99. It's a very pretty and unique-looking hybrid of 3D adventure and 2D action. I hope you're watching the video for this one. The main character, Phoenix, is searching for answers as to why he's having these visions and why he has the ability to control fire. He's a pyromancer. The open world map part of the game where you're exploring plays out like a 3D Zelda game, but then you go into the dungeons and it plays more like a side-scrolling action game that reminded me of Ninja Gaiden or Strider, lots of jumping and flipping and throwing stuff around. Check it out for yourself. I'm digging this one and might be picking it up this week. Also on the 7th, Damsel by Screwtap Studios launches on sale for $14.99, regularly $16.99. It's a fast-paced 2D action game that looks really, really fun. I'm getting a lot of Dead Cells vibes from it. It focuses on quick missions in a Castlevania-type, labyrinthine world and has a neat comic book art style. Per the developer, speed through dozens of missions as Special Agent Damsel, the first and last line of defense against the seedy world of corporate vampires. Rescue hostages, disarm bombs, hack servers, and dispatch the undead with precision, speed, and style. Balance frenetic action with split-second choices. So, that's cool. I see lots of double jumping, dashing, combo chaining, general melee plus projectile combat that is very reminiscent of Dead Cells again. It has multiple challenge modes and actually a chill out mode that kind of eliminates the penalty for dying and lets you just, move through the game at your own pace. I also think this one looks fantastic and I really want to check it out. On August 8th, we've got a couple of other exciting games coming up. Subdivision Infinity DX by Mystify Games launches on sale for $11.99, regularly $14.99. Looking for space combat? Then you've come to the right place. This is a very graphically impressive space combat action game with what looks like a ton of content. Really pretty visuals, lots of like bloom lighting and particle effects. You're fighting massive space battles, tons of ships on screen, and collecting parts to either buy new parts or build new ships. Then you go out and harvest asteroids to get materials to craft upgrades, and has over 30 story missions with a bunch of different options for replayability. It looks like a really cool game. Then we also have Doelings or Dofflings. I think it's Doelings. Josh and I could never remember that. Anyways, Doelings Invasion by Hero Concept launches $1 off of its regular price for $8.99. We talked about Doelings Arcade last year, and it was very much like Breakout style game with an animated clay aesthetic. Really cute and cartoony. Basically, you got a big row of enemies up at the top of the screen. You're bouncing a ball by using a paddle down at the bottom of the screen, trying to knock out all the enemies. What's different about Doelings Invasion is that it takes that general premise, and instead of applying it to classic Breakout, Hero Concept instead applies it to Space Invaders. So the rows of enemies are slowly moving down to the bottom of the screen, but you're moving left and right, shooting up at them, and you can aim your fire in different directions. And it also adds things like power-ups and collectibles and permanent upgrades depending on how well you do in the levels, and tons of different characters. I'm not sure I'm ready to drop $9 on it, but I think this is one that I'll pick up when it goes on sale for $5 or so. It looks like a game that could be a home row resident, if you know what I mean. Something that you're always keeping on your Switch for the occasional quick high-score chase gaming session. Oh, Edo Towns is this week's $12 Kairosoft game. It's a time management thing like what they release every single week. They now have 14 titles. They're all the exact same game. You just click in, waiting on things to build, and click in on the next one. I still hold true that Game Dev Story, the first game they made, is a decent game, but I mean, I got it in like 2009 on an iPod Touch for $1, so, just go find it out there. It's probably free. Oh, I said Kairosoft released 14 of these games. I was wrong. They're also releasing Pyraplex. Same game, same price, but Egypt. So we got 2 in 1 week, bringing a new low for these guys and up to 15 of the exact same $12 games. A new developer from Nothing Game Studios brings us Tactics 5 Obsidian Brigade. It's a whopping $25. Poor timing here. If you looked at Fire Emblem Three Houses, the new AAA Nintendo release, and said, I really wish this was a 1994 MS-DOS game, that's basically what it looks like you're getting here. It's got the medieval fantasy style, grid-based strategy RPG. It boasts a compelling story, upgradable characters, all that stuff. Honestly, while I try to advocate for the Nindie developers, I don't know what the hell this team was thinking. Not only are they launching a game very similar to Fire Emblem the same week as this long anticipated and unanimously praised entry, but they're also charging so much for it when it looks like, it could be great, but it looks like it was released 25 years ago. I'm not saying it's bad. In fact, it seems perfectly competent with an advertised 12 to 18 hour story and 80 scripted battles. Who knows? Maybe this could be the game for you if Fire Emblem just seems like too much to bite off at one time. Pix the Cat by Playdigious is $7.99, regularly $9.99. And this is a Switch port of a 2014 PS4 and Vita game. And it's actually pretty fun to play as a couch competitive game. I played it back on the PS4 and remember having a fun night of having friends over and we threw this game up and had some fun with it for a couple hours. It's kind of like Pac-Man, Snake, and Bomberman had a weird retro neon baby. You're a cat and you move around the screen, it looks like Pac-Man, picking up eggs which then create a tail behind you of said eggs. And while you try to get the longest chain possible, you have to avoid traps and obstacles as well as the advances from the other cats, which are the other players on the screen, who are trying to steal or break your eggs. There's lots of stuff going on screen, and it is actually pretty fun. It's quirky and a bit overpriced, I think. $8, that's really got the Switch port tax we see all too often, but it is a decent fun time. This version boasts a bunch of different modes and a significantly fleshed out single player mode. I haven't experienced those for myself, so I can't speak to them, but personally, I think this game should really only be considered if you're going to be sitting down on the couch with some friends and rubbing elbows and yelling at each other and stuff like that, because it is fun for that. And that's most of what's coming out this next week on the eShop from Nindies. Starting on August 9th, we've got a few exciting or interesting games to talk about, including Welcome to Hanwell, which is a self-described cesspit of anomalous scum, whatever that means. Race Die Run, a futuristic F-Zero Wipeout clone, and a tough-as-nails platformer called Never Give Up that looks pretty decent. But enough about that. Let's talk Nindie deals that you cannot afford to miss. There are currently 291 overall deals on the eShop, and 160 individual deals cycling in or out this week alone. Friends, you don't need to dig through all of that muck to find the good stuff. Let me shoulder that burden for you, and let's look at which of these titles are worth your e-money. First up, Cosmic Star Heroine is one of my favorite games that I have played in the last decade. It's a whopping 60% off for only $5.99, which is crazy. It is one of the best Nindies I've ever played and quickly became one of my top 10 JRPGs. And guys, I play a lot of them. If you like 16 and 32-bit era JRPGs like Phantasy Star or Chrono Trigger, pick this game up. It has an incredible soundtrack, fun and unique characters with a compelling story, and one of the most engaging combat systems of any turn-based RPG I have ever played. And the whole thing can be completed in less than 20 hours with impeccable pacing throughout the entire adventure. This game grabs you by the wrist and it runs and does not let up until the conclusion, and it is awesome. Also on sale this week, Lapis X Labyrinth. I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but it's a really fun side-scrolling action RPG that I spent a lot of time on during the Nindie Nation break a couple months ago. I put over 30 hours into it and felt like I barely scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. If you like hack and slash games with RPG mechanics and crazy amounts of loop drops, I really recommend this game at 30% off for $20.99. I've really enjoyed my time with it, and I'm not done yet. 9 Parchments, the joke that's always on sale. Someday I'm going to play this game. It's $5.99, which is 70% off. It's frequently at this price. It's like a slower paced twin-stick shooter / Diablo clone. Everything I've heard says that it's really only fun if you're playing with a friend. Someday I'll try it, guys, I swear. Robonauts is 39 cents, and I picked this up when it was around that price a while back. It's a fun stage-based action arcade game that's kind of like a missile defense. You're spinning around a globe, shooting at things that are either crawling on the globe or coming down at you, trying to, defend the planet or whatever. It's got a demo if you're really feeling frugal and not sure if you're going to risk 39 cents. but it's a good one to pick up. Action games, Bleed 1 and 2 are 70% off for $3.59 and $4.49 respectively. They're fun, very decently reviewed and stylish 2D action games. Double Cross by the Rumbo developer 13AM Games is a modern 2D action platformer with some Metroidvania mechanics. It's 40% off for $11.99. Mechstermination Force, that's Mech Extermination Force, from the creator of Gunman Clive, another great series that you can pick up on the Switch. It's a really cool 2D action game about being this little dude that has to take down gigantic mechs. If you're a PlayStation fan, think of like a sci-fi version of Shadow of the Colossus, but as a 2D game. It's only 20% off right now, but it's $9.59, and I think it's worth a shot at that price. Tangle Deep is a very well-received top-down 16-bit dungeon crawler that I have yet to play, but it's on sale this week for 35% off at $9.99, and this might be one of my big picks for myself this week. Also, one of my own picks that I'm really thinking about is Oniken Unstoppable Edition. It's half off for only $5, and it's really about as close to Ninja Gaiden as you can get without booting up the NES. OTTD, or Over-the-Top Tower Defense, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a real-time strategy tower defense blend that is very highly reviewed on Metacritic and elsewhere, and it's currently 75% off for $1.99. If you're in the mood for some tower defense this week, gang, this is the one to pick up. Likewise, if you're in the mood for a bullet hell shooter, Shikondo Soul Eater is one of the better bullet hell games that's on the Switch, and it really reminds me of the color polarizing mechanics of Ikaruga, if you remember that game, which is also on the Switch. The game's currently at 66% off for $4.75 and is well worth your time and money for that price. Sparkle 2 Evo is a 49-cent game that, while the game is kind of crap, honestly, I occasionally dip into this series and like how it's really chilled out. You're looking at it from the top, you're a little amoeba, you swim around and eat up other smaller things to get bigger, to eat the other bigger thing. It's like the free-to-play Agario game, if you've ever seen that. It's fun and it's very chill, and for less than $1, 49 cents, it is worth it. You'll get some fun time out of it, I think. It actually would be a really good game for a little kid or someone who really knows nothing about video games to try, because it's really just moving the stick around and steering your little fish dude and trying to eat other things, and it's not violent at all or anything like that. It's very calming. And last week we talked about the upcoming Trine 3. If you're interested in that, Trine 1 and 2 are both gorgeous 2D fantasy action games with some puzzle mechanics in it. They are 40% off for $8.99 for Trine 1 and $10.19 for Trine 2. Rounding out the eShop deals for this week is Super Chariot. It's a really funny puzzle platformer that is enjoyable solo, but it's really going to shine if you've got a co-op partner to play through the game with. It's 75% off for $5.99, and basically the two characters are responsible for pushing or pulling a chariot basically from point A to point B, but obviously the levels are going to get increasingly complicated with various like cliffs that you have to watch out for and slopes to go down, and so there's a lot of physics puzzling in there as well. It can lead to some really funny moments, especially if you're playing with a friend. Well worth it for $5.99. So we've got a big list this week. Overall, I think my picks for the upcoming games next week are going to be the Forbidden Arts and Damsel, both fairly similar games, but they both look great in their own unique way. And as far as sales, I gotta say Cosmic Star Heroine. If you haven't played it and you're even remotely interested in RPGs or especially JRPGs, like a Final Fantasy or something like that, you have to play it. Everybody should play it. In fact, if you're just into good sci-fi stories and you haven't played a JRPG, Cosmic Star Heroine might be a really good first JRPG for you. Coming up on the YouTube channel, we'll hopefully have a Let's Play or two for one of the titles I just mentioned, and I'm also looking into a couple of games like Forager from last week, and have a code for Super Willu Demake that we talked about earlier in the show. And kind of a heads up, I've been working on a couple of what I think are really cool feature video ideas. One of them is about some of the best Nindies that, through free downloadable content and consistent updates, have actually become better over time, providing like a great value that if you haven't played the game, you know that there's a bunch there for you. And if you did play a game, they might be ones that you could go back to because of all the stuff that's been added over time. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And I'm talking with the crew at Nintendo Village about a complimentary feature or article about the non-Nindie titles that are also seeing long-term consistent updates from the bigger developers, as it were. Speaking of Nintendo Village, we are hosted through the Nintendo Village. It's a great site featuring articles and reviews from great staff and writers who, like me, do this as a passion project. There are multiple fantastic shows hosted through the channel, such as Nintendo Nostalgia, offering deep dives into the great Nintendo titles of yesteryear, Mouse Bites, which focuses on all the Disney titles throughout the entire timeline of gaming, and P-Myth Gaming, hosted by Nintendo Village co-founder Phil Myth, as a weekly dive into the news, rumors, and general gaming anecdotes from someone who really knows his stuff. You can check out the Nintendo Village at thenintendovillage.com or on Twitter at Village Nintendo. You can find Nindie Nation on Twitter at Nindie Nation, or you can find myself, Jeff, at Nindie Jeff. We're also on Facebook and YouTube, of course, and I have some codes that are burning in a hole through my digital pocket, so keep your eyes peeled to social media feeds for upcoming giveaways, and as always, any feedback you can send our way is very, very much appreciated. Thanks so much for joining me this week for another episode of the Nindie Nation podcast. Join us next week for another weekly dive into all things independently developed for the Nintendo Switch, and in the meantime, keep those Joy-Cons synced.